let's talk about gradients. They have become a very natural thing to see in a build high sheet. I have at this point started to get a bit familiar with. I'm usually not the best builder, but I have started to actually challenge my views on buildings. And as you can see here on the Terra episode, this is the wall that we built in the last episode. And in this wall, I'm actually using a gradient that goes from gray concrete through deep slate and then up to stone brick in the top. Now, why do you do this? Why is gradients such a good thing? Now, if you ask me, there's 5 different types of gradients and ways to lay them out. Now, when I say that there's 5 different types, I'm not meaning that like 5 different ways of laying out the blocks side by side, but 5 different ways of putting up the gradients to get different views on it. The first and of course most obvious gradient is to simply lay the blocks down end to end without taking any interference from the other colors or other block palettes that you have. So this is where you get a straight line going all the way across, and you can clearly see that line all the way through. Without even thinking about it, I can already now see where the seams are in between the different types of blocks this wall consists of. This is why this is the most simple way to make a gradient and why I usually tend to avoid this option. Going on to our next one, we have a kind of randomized pattern here. This is where you simply lay down the different blocks that are side by side and basically just randomize them to the best of your ability. Now, what you end up doing when using this method is that you end up creating these sort of like single standalone blocks that doesn't really connect to the base color that they stem from, which can look a bit odd when you are looking at it quickly, like up here, for example, and right there. It kind of seems out of place and takes you out of it a little bit. Also up there, definitely. So this is one that I usually only use if I need to cover it up very deeply with a bunch of decorations, which we will get to later. Now, if you watch my Terra series, you'll see that this is actually the way that I laid out the wall that I just showed you in the beginning of this video. Now, the way that you do this is basically lay down one line of the block, just like so. So you lay down a line and then you start just randomizing it, saying like, yeah, I want this wavy pattern, but instead of going random line per line, you take it like in waves for the different block types. So for this one, I would maybe do like that to get this kind of wavy pattern going on. And then I would take the next block and sort of fill it up to the top here. Give it one layer of the block that needs to come next, so it's clear that that is the block and it doesn't seem too disconnected. And then you do the exact same thing. So for this one, I just pattern it up, do kind of a random wave thing here, and go on from there. This will give it a kind of nice flow, I feel like, and it makes it look really nice and organic all the way through. So yeah, this is definitely my favorite one. Now, these first 3 have been very generic. These are gradients that you can use in most all types of builds. I wouldn't recommend that one. But these are ones that you can use in pretty much any type of build that you're doing. Now, up next is one that you might want to be a bit more specific about with your builds, because this one, the goal of it is kind of to like aim your vision up to the middle of whatever wall you're making here. Now, this one is very edgy. This is simply just a V shape, as you can see, going all the way down through. Now, this V shape makes it seem a bit tough and a bit more edgy. This is a very edgy wall, as you can see. Now, because your vision goes from the dark to the lighter colors, this will inevitably show more dark out here and therefore start to center your vision as you go up to whatever might be standing on top. You could have a statue up here, or you could have yourself standing there, you egotistical bastard. This one is a U shape. I feel like this gives it a more organic flow while still trying to center your vision to the middle of the top of your wall. So what this does for me is it doesn't look as rigid as this one over here, and it feels more like it belongs in a more natural environment, whereas this I might use in a more modern or very edgy environment. We're not cavemen, okay? So we've started to actually detail our walls, and this is where the important step comes in, because these walls back here, no matter how well you try to blend the different blocks, you will still be able to see the seam line very clearly. But when we start to cover them up, the story becomes a little bit different. I'll just quickly go through these because starting at the first one, you can see that even though we have a lot of detail in the front here, we're still able to very easily show where the seams are in between the different block types, which is why I don't like this type of gradient. It's way too easy to see where it cuts off, which kind of takes you out of it a little bit. It will work in a pinch, but I would not recommend doing this, and I would instead recommend putting in a little bit extra time to go for this one. Now, yeah, you can still easily see the different blocks here, but because they are randomized, you don't notice it as much. It's not a solid line going through. There is the seam in there, but you don't notice it as much because there's this layer in front. But what you notice is that the whole tone of the build goes from being dark down here to being lighter and lighter up there. Now, the next one, as I said earlier, this is absolutely my favorite one because this, I don't know why, but it feels way more organic to me. Going on to the next one, you can see that we still have this edgelord design here. And as I said, I feel like it makes it seem a bit more rough and a bit more edgy, for lack of a better word. It's very rigid feeling because of the straight lines. They are somewhat hidden, but they are still there, and it kind of, yeah, it makes me feel like this is a very edgy sort of wall here. And going over to this, you still have kind of this edgy look because the circle kind of fades out. But what it does, both of these does actually, is still take my vision through to the middle here. Especially helped by the decoration here. But yeah, it takes your vision through to the middle because if you start to go out to the sides, it becomes darker, so you are automatically trying to go into the middle here. Now, if you're having troubles making gradients in your usual builds or coming up with a gradient to use, a thing that I would suggest is to use the website I've linked down below. It's called HueBlocks, and it basically lets you pick out different Minecraft blocks. So for example, for this one, I chose that I wanted the gradient from blackstone to stone brick. Also, if you feel like these designs in the back here was lackluster and you want to test out something for yourself, I've included a download link to this world in the description down below. So feel free to snap it up and do your best. And please feel free to show me if you use these gradients or these designs in your builds. I would absolutely love to see that. Now, that's pretty much all for this video, so thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped, and if you liked it, please make sure to hit that like button down below. If you really loved it, then make sure to subscribe, guys, and I will see you all next time.